Hey guys, welcome to the Preseason podcast for rookies and mid-price players and cash cows. I'm Paige and I've got Matt with me.
Yes, it's another season. Very excited. SuperCoach was announced and released, very recently. What was it, on Friday, I believe?
Yeah, it was Thursday.
Thursday. So
there you go.
Lots of people stayed up until midnight, really eager to get their teams in, and I was one of those people.
Yeah, so was I. So no rest for the wicked, but. We're going to jump straight into it to begin with, and there's been a lot of questions about the rookies for this year, and ahead of the NAB Challenge, it's something that we really want to pay attention to because we know that the rookies are the lifeblood of this competition. So we'll start from the back, and we're looking firstly at Kade Kolodjashnij, priced at $197,300. What are your thoughts, Matt?
Well, he had ridiculous numbers in the under-18 carnivals. I mean, over 100, right? I think 130-ish, I think, was his average.
Yeah, he did, yep.
So, I mean, that's something you can't really ignore. The one downside for him is his price tag. He's close to $200,000, and that's because he was drafted at number 4 in the national draft, I believe.
Yes.
So, you've got a great player, a great rebounding player, but one, will he get attention from opposition, defensive forwards, which is very likely because he's such a great kid.
Yeah. You'd also think with Trent McKenzie there for the Suns too, that they probably might go to him first, and that he might actually keep KK out of the side. But then again, you say that, Swallow's going to make that transition into a midfielder this year, which probably means that there's a position there for KK to step in. And they drafted him knowing that he would be a player they could bring in from day dot, and that's someone to consider, and I think he's locked in for plenty of sides this year. So averaged 138 in the national championships and 106 for the Mariners when they played in the TAC Cup, so that's someone to keep an eye on. But next up, we're looking at father-son pick Luke McDonald at $180,300. Well, he pretty much picks himself, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's had a full season basically of knowing that he was going to North Melbourne because, unless they came dead last, I doubt they were going to use their number 1 draft pick on him.
Yeah, exactly.
He's such a great player. Like, he runs 30 metres and then he boots at 60. He's such a great player, great kick. He's a utility. He can play all around the field. He's had the preseason.
And he's done his apprenticeship through the VFL last year as well with Werribee. He averaged 16.4 disposals at 68% efficiency, 3 marks, 3 inside 50s per game, and averaged 100 points at the National Championships last year as the captain of Vic Metro. Yeah. So someone that you can pretty much hang your hat on as a very enticing player, but someone who could probably be the Brett Goods of this year is Matt Fuller for the Western Bulldogs, $117,300. What are your thoughts there?
Mature age player, exactly like you said. He's the Brett Goods clone. Not original, but he's still going to play from day dot, thumping kick, and he's really ready to play. He's got the mature body, and that's what the Dogs really need. Well,
he's got that potential to average around that 60 to 75 points mark. He averaged 66 fantasy points. We don't actually have points-wise on his SuperCoach output, but he really can step into that lineup for the Dogs and provide some stability down back. Again, he'll be probably thereabouts with Easton Wood and Dayle and stuff like that. So there's competition for that spot there, but I would really back him for. They recruited him to play too, and that's someone who probably you should be locking in at least for a bench option.
And he's not a lockdown role either. He's really that sort of rebounding, attacking thing, which is really important in SuperCoach.
And he can provide that midfield rotation as well. But another player we're going to look at who's been a little bit speculative, and we've had a few questions about him, Collingwood's Tom Langdon. He's priced at $117,300. He had a very good turnout at the intra-club yesterday for Collingwood and played mostly on a wing, and it's caused a lot of people to ask what's going on. But he, funnily enough, he was the 4th player to average the most SuperCoach points last year in the TAC Cup, Langdon. He was an absolute standout. 138 points, there we go, at TAC Cup level. So he can score and he does use the ball well. But I think at the moment, there's probably a few players ahead of Collingwood.
I mean, he is an overage player. He was 19 when he was drafted and quite late in the national draft, but at least he's on the senior list.
Yep.
But like you said, you've got so many players ahead of him. I think he could get games at some point during the season. Like he might be an emergency for round 1, but I don't think he'll be picked, even though I really do like the way he goes about it. And He's a quality kid as well.
Yeah, he's an interesting prospect, but I mean, for the fact that only Josh Kelly, Matt Crouch, Christian Salem and Tom Boyd averaged more SuperCoach points than him this year, it's a pretty big rap. So, I mean, he averaged 28 disposals, 5 clearances and 5 tackles a game. So, you know, the Pies also looked at him as someone who could play pretty early on. And if he's thereabouts for round 1, I wouldn't hesitate on picking him up. Yeah,
and you've got Heath Shaw who's left the side. Yep. So there is a spot there. It's just a question of whether he will be able to take it or not.
Exactly.
And... You know, he's shown the ability to move all around the ground as well. Like, he played more back in the TAC last year.
And he did play with the Sandringham Zebras as well in the VFL too. He was used as mostly as a utility.
Yeah, so he's able to play anywhere. So if there are holes that needed to be plugged, Langdon's the one that's able to do it.
Adelaide's Luke Thompson, $123,900. What are we thinking there?
Well, I like him, even though he's only played one game in the past 2 years. He played 11 in 2011, and he scored around 60, 70 odds. Yep. So he's one of those picks that, you know, I'd liken him to someone like Lewis Stevenson. So he's going to get you some decent money if he plays. He's not going to, you know, be a superstar like Brett Goods is, but he's definitely going to get you some money. And I like him as a pick. He's one of the few cheaper options that's really probably going to get game time early in the season.
Yeah, he's one that's probably flown under the radar of a lot of coaches at the moment. No one's really brought him up. But what you have, so there you go. Joel Tippett, $123,900, key defender, branded the best fullback outside of the AFL. What do we think?
I think I'm never taking a tall player in my defence or forwards ever again, especially after Jackson Thurlow last year. He'll get games, but he won't go up enough for me to warrant selecting him in round 1.
Yeah, and another Magpie, Matthew Scharenberg, he's priced at $192,300. He's just come back into running, so the Pies picked him knowing he had a couple of issues with his feet. Mm-hmm. He returns to full training in the next fortnight, but even then I think he's someone that Collingwood, obviously, their first round pick number 6 overall, they're going to be obviously very cautious with him, and I think a bit like Grundy last year, how they just allowed him time to get over his injuries and just nursed him through that period. I don't think we're probably going to be seeing Scharenberg until at least after the bye. So Collingwood's bye is round 8.
Well, that might actually be a really good idea. You know, if you've got a player that's peaked in price, then it might be the perfect time to bring in Scharenberg.
And again, Scharenberg was picked to play, and he's got that AFL ready body. He plays a lot like Brendan Goddard.
He's huge.
He is. He's quite a big kid, but obviously with the foot problem, return to training the next fortnight, we'll probably see more then. He'll definitely come back through the VFL, but look, he averaged 113 points at the national championships. So he's a proven scorer and someone that's going to can be considered after the byes, I think.
And he had a great leadership role for South Australia as well in the championships.
Yeah, runner-up in the Lark Medal Domshire too. So not a bad pick-up if he gets his body right. And we're going to move on to the midfielders now. Getting into the meaty part of this. Now, Jack Martin, $222,300, the first round mini draft pick of, when was it, 2012?
Yes.
So, it's been a long time coming.
Really, really like him, but he's so expensive.
Yep. You have to part ways with the money, though. We saw what Jager did last year.
But he was priced at 100 odd, not 200
Yeah,
something.
That's true.
That's another 100. You know how I am with my SuperCoach salary cap. If I can squeeze out every single... I didn't pick Ablett until after the bye rounds. So...
Well, look, he averaged 128 points at the National Championships in 2012, and he had an average of 111 in the NEAFL last year, and that was only off 8 games.
Yeah, and he's definitely going to play. If there's anyone that has job security, it's Jack Martin.
Yeah. I think he, for me, is the number 1 ranked rookie player, not rookie price. He's the rookie player. It's a pick this year. I've got him. I have to start with him. I think it's going to come back to bite me.
Well, it depends on what happens in the NAB Challenge. Like, everything is based on the NAB Challenge. You really see who is likely to get games on early in the year, not just on their performance, but even if they're selected. So if someone's not getting selected in the NAB Challenge, it's probably likely that, you know, they're not going to get game time early on in the year. So Jack Martin... depending on how things work out, if your salary cap falls that way that you can include him based on who does and doesn't play, then by all means play him. But don't.
I've got him. I'm different. I'm saying get him at all costs and don't look back.
Yeah, so
he's going to score and score well.
Your style is like pick Jack Martin and then fit the team around it. Mine is pick the team, and if you can fit Jack Martin, then great. So,
all right, moving on to Jack Billings, the number 3 pick for the Saints last year. Now this kid can play. We saw a lot of him last year.
He's Steve Johnson Mark II, in my opinion.
Averaged 88 points in the national champs last year, 127 at TAC Cup level. He does it all.
Yeah.
He kicks goals, he creates goals, he rolls through the midfield, he marks as if he's a tall forward. He plays on, like he's a small forward. He does everything. He's just such a well-rounded player. He'll probably play, I think, more so off forward. The forward flank, possibly in a pocket. Is probably where we'll see Jack Billings start his career. But
and you've got Alan Richardson coming in, so all these young players, the newly drafted or newly traded players, are going to get game time, or at least get a chance to prove that they deserve game time. So look out for him in the NAB challenge, because he's definitely going to feature there.
I think if he fits your price tag, your price range, I think it's worth forking out the money for.
Yeah, he's a forward mid as well.
Yeah,
right? So
and you get DPP with him as well. But the other thing as well, he's going to play. He's got a body that's ready. He had that quad issue over in Colorado, wasn't he? Yeah, but he's over that now. He's returned to full training. He doesn't look hampered by that whatsoever. Only a small hiccup. But moving on to Jonathan O'Rourke, the number 2 pick from 2012, $123,900. You have to pick him.
He's a Tiger supporter too, so I like him. He's going to take over. He's going to take over Taylor Adams' role from GWS. I really rate the way he plays. He's really aggressive. He's basically an exact Adams replacement.
Yeah, he's got that perfect mix of inside and outside grunt.
Yeah, and he's got that mongrel as well.
He's got the polish too, and I think at $123,900 and a former pick too, he's going to play.
Yeah.
There's no question that.
That's my style of pick, the cheap ones.
Now we're looking now at Luke Dunstan, St Kilda, in the first round, pick 18 from memory, 132, 200. What are your thoughts there?
Yep, definitely. Yep. He's got a huge body.
He's a man-child. Yeah, big raps from him coming from St Kilda as well.
Definitely going to play, especially with all the young kids that they've brought in. They need, players to play early on, and I think Dunstan is one of those players.
Well, he's one of those. He's, like we said, he's got a big body. He can come straight into the lineup, and he's played senior football in South Australia before being drafted. He led South Australia last year as captain, won their MVP. He was the premiership captain for Woodville West Torrens in the Maccas Cup there in the under-18s. He's got leadership written all over him, and he averaged 109 as well. So he's someone as well, awkward price at 130. He's in my preliminary side at the moment, but for me, I like him. Mitch Honeychurch, he was my favourite player.
Honey.
There's a good story to that. Mitch Honeychurch, 117,300. He is my boy.
Yeah, he's definitely a lock for mine, and he's got that dual position as well. So if you are like me and you don't want to splurge on Jack Billings, get Honeychurch, because they'll get you the same sort of scoring, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And you will save 90 grand.
The upside, I guess, with Honeychurch is that he'll probably start his career again as a small forward. We saw Lockie Hunter have a huge impact last year for the Bulldogs, but I think Hunter's probably going to play a bit more as a flanker, pushing up to the wing. And they could do worse and have Honeychurch playing in the pocket at the feet of Cramery, obviously Jones, Grant when he comes back in. And a small forward is someone they've really lacked, and Honeychurch will play that role, despite the fact that he can play through the midfield as well.
Yeah.
If he's there in round 1, just get him in, whether he's on the field or on the bench.
And he's a real accumulator as well, so it's not like he doesn't have the tank to play at AFL level, so he's not likely to be the sub, in my opinion. I think that'll still be something that G and Syracuse will be doing this year.
Yep.
And maybe he might even be personally mentoring Honeychurch, because they play the same sort of role.
Moving on to a very unlucky knee victim for the third time, coming back from that, Anthony Morabito, 123,900. Ross Lyon has said that he's gonna come back through the waffle. We're probably not going to see him until after the bye for Fremantle, but they would be itching to get him into their side and be pushing again to make on the grand final.
Do you think he'll play in the NAB Challenge? I know he would come through the waffle for experience, but do you think that they'll play him in the Challenge as well?
It's probably a bit... Look, Fremantle supporters tell me there's 5% chance of him playing round one. So pretty much to me it sounds like he might be thereabouts for a NAB Challenge game, even if it is a quarter. I'm not expecting it, but if he does play, I'd be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
I guess that's probably the stance I'm taking.
There's no one more that I want to see back in the AFL.
I don't think any opposition supporter would wish that upon Morabito. He's a star and he deserves some luck. But your player that you keep bringing up this pre-season is Hawthorn's Mitch Hallahan. $123,900. Tell us about him.
Brad Sewell replacement. That's what he is. Sewell would have to be on his last year this year.
No doubt about that.
And Hallahan is the perfect replacement. They're essentially, same game style, same grunt, same bustling ability. He's 20 years old now, I think, Hallahan. He's been in the system for a few years. And
very good at VFL level.
Yeah, extremely good. The only issue is you've got players like Anderson and Simpkin ahead of him, who Simpkin showed how good he was in the grand final and all those games leading up.
A couple more draftees with Hartung and Garlett as well that'll be pushing for a spot too. So the hot competition.
Yeah, no, definitely another one to really look out for in the NAB Challenge, because he will get games there. You get the younger kids games, but I really, really want Hallahan in my side. Now,
coming up next in the midfielders, James Aish. Lions snapped him up pick 7. Absolute steal, if you ask me. What do we make of that? He's $187,300. Looks like he'll play early. What do you think?
Quality player, but I don't think for SuperCoach it'll be ideal for him. Especially with the Lions and how they've really gone the young blood for this season. They drafted amazingly well. But you've got to think they still are 18, 19-year-olds. Yep. So I think someone with Aish's game style, which is more outside, he's not going to be, getting the ball fed to him by these young kids. I mean, they've still got some older players, like your Rockcliffe and Redden and Black that are still playing, in the midfield. But I don't think it'll be enough to really get him into the game.
He's an outside player. He lacks the contested ball, which is probably a question mark, SuperCoach-wise. Look, we know he's incredibly efficient by foot. He had the highest kick rating at the National Championships. But I guess when it comes to SuperCoach, there is a question mark on whether he'll be a sub. There is another question mark on whether he's going to score enough to warrant enough price rises to warrant picking him in your side. I guess that's a bit of a mouthful. But he did average 87 at the National Championships and was tagged quite often. When he's allowed to play his natural free-flowing game, he's an absolute star. But I think he's someone that might have a few glimpses here and there. I think he's one to consider possibly next year or the year after.
I think with Aish, like you said, the contested ball is the real worry. I think for players that are coming out of the under-18s, the recruiters really look at what percentage of their disposals are contested. And players who are deemed outside, I'm just going to use, since I'm rich, I'm going to use Brandon Ellis. He was around 40-45%, and that was still pretty low for a midfielder. And James Aish is around 30-35. So that just goes to show you how much of outside ball he really gets, and you really need to.
He's a bit of a gaff type in that sense. So
definitely.
I stayed away from gaff in his first year, and that served me pretty well. I might do the same with Aish, but. Moving on to Christian Salem, $177,300. He's a Luke Hodge crossed with a Dan Hanbury. He's got that grunt, the courage, the polish, the ability to play in a position handed to him.
Great kid as well.
Yeah, fantastic head on his shoulders, but where does he fit into in the other lineup?
The real question is, does Paul Roos play him? Because, I think there definitely is a spot for him. They've got older players that they're good foot soldiers, but they're not going to lead Melbourne to finals, let alone another premiership. And so, Salem could take the place of someone like, Rowan Bale or someone like that, or Colin Sylvia also moved over to Fremantle. I really like Salem. I wish he dropped Richmond in the national draft, but I think he's a little like he's not massively expensive. He's 177.
177.
So I mean, he's gettable if he performs really well in the NAB Challenge. By all means, pick him. I would. But right now, I just think there are a few better options than him.
He's not in my thought process at the moment, but if he plays in the first round and a few others I banked on don't, well then I'm going to throw him in. Now, having a look, the last player in our midfielders, we're going to look at West Coast, Dom Sheed, 167 to 300, the Lark medalist, absolute gun.
Yeah.
What are we making him at the moment?
Like you said, absolute gun. Again, with a but. West Coast, their problem in their midfield is speed. And that is Dom Sheed's one problem. So if they were going to draft players to fix the major problem in their midfield, it's not Dom Sheed. So unless someone like Pritis goes down or one of their slower midfielders, he's not going to get games. Yeah. I mean, Wellingham getting injured again is good news for Sheed, but there's only so much average pace players that you can have. I mean,
they've got a few quick ones. They've got Shuey Maston. Wellingham, when fit, offers a bit of zip. Scott Zellwood's got a bit of kick to him as well. I think the only issue that I'm having at the moment is that you've got Andrew Gaff, Luke Shuey, Chris Maston, Wellingham, Scott Zellwood and Pritis that are already in that midfield. Now, if you throw in Dom Sheed, who's probably more likely going to play at the coalface, he's not really one of those players you can, just let him play off half-back or half-forward. He's a real ball-extracting midfielder. I don't know if he's round one material.
And especially with him being, I don't want to say one-dimensional, but he really specialises in one particular area.
Oh, he can kick goals, though. He's a great goal kicker.
He definitely can kick goals, but if you're not able to be a real utility, especially with the interchange cap this year, I think the coach might be very reluctant to pick him, especially early on in the year, and maybe develop his all-round game at waffle level.
Yeah, look, while we're briefly, I don't know, people are going to probably mention, why didn't you mention Matt Crouch, Marcus Bontempelli, Blake Acres, even Patrick Cripps. At this stage, I think maybe, if anything, Cripps for Carlton might sort of feature. When you're looking at Matt Crouch, needs to work on his aerobic capacity.
And Acres,
Acres as well as someone I think is a bit
he needs to build up his body.
Yep. Those sorts of players. Bontempelli's probably a speculative pick. He's neither Arthur or Martha for mine at the moment. We don't know where he is. Look, he does have that outside. He's got the zip, he's got that flair, he's got that fantastic marking ability and great ball use, but whether or not they play him early is the other thing. That's probably the other problem. But look, now moving on to the rucks, there's this where it's really caused a few issues at the moment. We're going to start things off with Essendon's Fraser Thurlow. 117,300. He's on the rookie list, but Bell Chambers has gone down, which surely means that he gets elevated. Yeah.
Well, Bell Chambers is back reasonably early on. I want to say like around their bye round maybe, or maybe a bit before, so round 6-ish, I think, is when Bell Chambers is set to be back. We'll actually touch on that a bit later. Oh, no, well, I'll mention it now. Ryder, pick him, because he is so good when he can play in the rucks. So
I knew we were going to get this.
I know it's not the rookies or mid-prices, but you need Ryder in your team. Continue.
Anyway, moving on from that, Fraser Thurlow could be an option to debut earlier than what we all expected. He is a mature age rucky. He's 21. He did average around that 100 points as well in the NEAFL too. He's a bona fide ruckman that can offer a bit of ability to play forward and rotate through there. So there is an option there for him to play. Whether or not he does, regardless, he's 117,300. And if you need that cheap ruckman to sit there, he's one to look at. But having a look at Toby Nankervis, T-Nank, we loved him at the
ridiculously good at the combine with his kicking skills, which is a very big plus for Supercoach. He
117,300 now. The Swans, the ruck department, it's Tippett and Pike at the moment, that are basically Pike's going to shoulder the bigger load with Tippett giving him a chop out, which to me says perhaps we won't see guys like Nankervis or Derricks or even Naismith probably earlier than what we perhaps thought.
Yeah, I think if anyone's to get the first crack at it, it'll be Derricks. You wouldn't have traded for or picked up as a delisted free agent Derricks if you were just going to let him sit in the reserves.
They did pick him up as insurance, but I think also that probably means that, as you said, on seniority, he's probably first banana in line.
I mean, Derricks might get one game and then spot it up and then get dropped again, and then it'll be Nankervis's turn. But
Derricks anyway is 123,900.
So it's what, 5-6 grand more. So it's not that
insurance
much
ruckman, I think.
Yeah.
The last one we'll touch on as well with the ruckman. Obviously, everyone's favourite North Melbourne ruckman from last year and my captain loophole, Dan Curry, 123,900. Now, I told you earlier I've got a theory on this, and I think
it's a good theory
that with Dan Curry recommitting to North Melbourne in the off-season, it was for 2 years from memory, he would have had to have been promised game time because clubs like Richmond and Collingwood and GWS and the like were breathing down Curry's neck and trying to entice him across. And he's got to be the most highly sought-after player yet to debut.
Yeah, I mean, he'd be ahead of Daw now to get games. I mean, if there was something in his contract, I'm sure it was... Even if it's not, you will get games. It's if someone goes down, you are the first option.
Yeah.
Something like that.
It'd be, look, you almost bank on him to at least make his debut this year. I'd lock him in regardless. You've got to have him. But we'll move on finally to the forwards. Now, Jesse Hogan, 217,300. I don't know about this. He's not fitted. He hasn't fit into my team yet.
He's such a beast, though. He's the next Jonathan Brown.
Yeah.
If he was 150 to 180, I would pick him. Not at 217.
Yeah. I don't know. Look, he did win Casey's best and fairest last year. Mitch Clark is... Who knows what's going on with him. Chris Dawes, well, at least he looks in better shape than he did this time last year. But they're going to look for him. He's going to get a lot of the ball.
Yeah. He's going to take a really good defender. Yeah.
I'm not quite sure. I think I need to see NAB Cup proof before I consider him. He's still on my to-watch list. But Lewis Taylor, $117,300.
Bargain in the draft.
Me and Louis go way back, by the way. But, you've got to pick him. Forward mid as well.
Yeah. He's one of the few that I locked as soon as SuperCoach opened. He's got a great, game style for SuperCoach. He really bursts through. If he gets it in the back line, he'll be able to rebound into it. 105 at the National Championships, 126 at TAC Cup level for the Geelong Carpers. He did amazingly. Unfortunately, he suffered that injury towards the end of the year.
Yeah, that stress fracture in his left foot.
Yeah.
But he's over it now. He's in full training. He looks pretty well. And he's probably someone that the Lions will probably look to very early on. I think he's a bona fide gun,
especially with new coach again, Justin Lepage.
Yep.
So young kid's going to get a chance.
Now Dayle Garlett, 117,300. I have locked and loaded him. He's got value written all over him. And Al Clarkson says that he can play from round one.
Well, if I see him perform in the NAB Challenge, I'll pick him.
Not even for his MPP between forward and mid.
Yeah, but I would rather play Honeychurch as a forward and then pick, say, Hartung as a mid or something like that. I mean, I don't know. If he's probably only going to play as a forward pocket, that's the thing. If Garlett does play, I don't see him playing around the ground, especially early on. And I think that'll affect his scoring. I know he's a great player, but I think he's going to be a bit limited with how Hawthorn play him, and that's just off a hunch. There's no research put into that one, but I mean, I might very well put him into my team when the season starts, but right now he's not.
Well, he's in my side, so everyone should pick him. Jade Kennedy Harris, 117,300. He's a beauty.
You can't shut up about it.
I know, I do. I love him. He was he captained Oakley last year, and he was just such a fantastic player. And he's not just your, you really can't pigeonhole him as a small forward because he does everything. He can play on a wing, he plays from the midfield, but at Melbourne particularly, he was recruited to play, at least to start off with, as a small forward. And to have him crumbing at the feet of guys like Hogan, Dawes, and of course Mitch Clark as well. When you've got Fitzpatrick, Gawn and the like rotating through that forward line too, he is going to get a lot of cheap ball.
Yeah, he knows where to run. Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah.
He's a noted goal kicker.
The big problem with Melbourne in 2013 was the ball would get kicked in, spoiled, and then immediately taken out. Yeah. And with someone like J. Kennedy Harris, that's not going to happen as easily. He's
burning up the track too. Not to use a cliche this time of year, but he's really impressed onlookers, and the media can't shut up about him. So if you're looking for a Chiefs forward, he's going to consider, along with Jarman, Wheels, Impey.
First round pick for Port Adelaide.
Yeah, pick 21.
They really, really, really rate him over in Adelaide. So
he's the kind of player that, although in Supercoach he's actually been named as a forward only, Jars played a lot of his football last year for the Bushrangers in the TAP Cup off half-back. So, and often when the Bushrangers were under the pump and their defence was getting really penetrated, he was often looked to find space and room where there wasn't any and really offset a counter-attack from defence. Yeah. And he's a real playmaker. He's a creator. And does so many things well. He's got a great kick rating. He's got fantastic hands. He just does a lot of smart things. So, but, I mean, look at that. You've got Jake Need there, obviously Chad Wingard. It's sort of at the moment, where do you fit him in? Because I think Port's 22 is really almost
reasonably settled.
Yeah.
I think he could take over from Need, I think. I think Need's still a bit too light for senior footy. I know Impey's not exactly a giant, but he's definitely bigger than Jake Need. And like you said, when required, he can go down back. So I know there were times when there was Campbell Heath and Lewis Stevenson, less so Pittard, but when they were a bit shaky. And so I think he could really, do well with being, again, with the interchange cap and needing to move around. You could really just put him anywhere and he can play it really well.
And the last player we're going to touch on today for the rookies is Shane Kersten from Geelong. Now, he's been in the system for a couple of years at the VFL. He's kicked 79 goals in that period. He's a bit of a Jack Gunston type. He's that sort of third tall. Obviously, there's going to be guys like George Burberry that are going to come in this year. But Kersten, for mine, there's no Pod Siadley anymore. And at 123,900, I think he's someone that you could probably look to. But again, that probably goes against the mantra that we hold at Supercoach Paige, which is to avoid the big guys unless they are Tom Boyd, which we haven't mentioned, which we'll do now.
Yeah. Oh, he's too expensive for mine, Boyd.
Too expensive.
Yeah.
And he's competing with Patton.
And
Cameron. And probably Tomlinson and Jack and God knows who else, because all they do is breed tall players down there. But I'm not sold on Hogan, Boyd or Kersten at the moment.
Kersten more so because he's not... I mean, he's what? He's 190-ish, so he's the smaller tall forward. Yeah. So he still has that sort of agility and ability and, the tank to really get around. And his accuracy is so good. Over the past 2 years in the VFL, it has some insane accuracy, something like 78, 79 goals, and then 20 behinds or something like that. So
79-29.
79-29, yeah.
So he can kick goals. But look, we're going to leave it for there today. We're going to come back later in the week with a podcast for you regarding the mid-price players and the cash cows, which will be highly sought after. But until then, I hope this podcast has served you well. The SCP show isn't far off from resuming, so keep an ear out for that. And you'll hear from us soon.
All right. Catch you later.